Hello, everyone. Welcome to our free virtual Chrome Enterprise Summit. Thank you so much for joining us via Up7 and via live. Firstly, we would like to wish you Happy New Year 2021. Lot of health, success in your professional and personal lives. So Happy New Year. So we have Dan and Charlie here. Hi, Dan. Hi, Charlie. How are you both doing?
Good, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. So just a little bit of overview. I am based in the Czech Republic. I deal with European training. So please feel free to contact me anytime. Dan is our CEO of Up7, and he oversees everything from Prague as well. Charlie is our specialist. He's going to present and run this summit. Thank you so much, Charlie. Before we get into that, we would like to thanks to our great partnership with Acer. We are really pleased for this cooperation because we wouldn't be able to run these free events. So thank you so much, Acer, for this cooperation. We are Acer Chromebook users, huge fans, and we really highly recommend them. We would like to also kindly ask you to submit the survey. You can see the link, and you have a chance to win free seats for our upcoming events. So please submit the survey. Thank you for that. So so also you may join our social channels. Also, feel free to check our website. You can learn a bit more about the ISTI certification. We run these trainings, so feel free to contact us as well.
And I think we're going to talk about this today, aren't we? Just a little bit about the kind of G Suite Enterprise for Education trial.
Sure.
We're going to touch on that later today as well. Right.
Yeah, so you can see also our pictures.
So we've got some bios and bits and pieces. Just maybe a little bit about us, and
yes,
so
Charlie,
we can chat through that today. So maybe we just jump into that. So my background is really around digital and supporting digital in local authorities and across work. I do a lot of work across Scotland and across Europe, supporting digital transformation and work in computing science and digital. And I've got real expertise in terms of G Suite, Google Workspace administration. And that's really kind of why I'm kind of chatting to you today. Dan, maybe say a little bit about yourself as well.
Yeah, I'm from England. I actually I think we went to the same university, Charlie, didn't we? You also at Aberdeen. And,
yeah.
But I live in Czech Republic, and running apps events. We work with schools all around the world, like Veronica said. We're a Google partner. We're only focused on education, so only focused on Google. So we focus on Google stuff, and also in terms of the pedagogy, we're involved in ISTI as well. We do the ISTI certification. So yeah, that's what I do.
Thank you,
Brilliant. Great, thanks, Dan. So really just to take you through kind of the agenda for today. We'll see how this goes. We're really happy to take questions. You can respond, I think, through YouTube and Twitter and things, and you can share questions, and we'll do our best to answer those things. Maybe some of those as we go along, and maybe jump into them. Somebody might take up at the end. We'll just kind of take those as they come. Veronica's really helpful and kind of just point us in the direction of those questions when they appear. So we'll do that. Can I take you through the agenda? This is really a look at introducing education for enterprise, but also maybe focusing and bringing in those enterprise features that are available for businesses as well. So we're going to talk about that as we go through, and just kind of some of the kind of models, how you might do it, and what you might do in terms of that enterprise for education piece. We'll talk about some of the features. So what do you get for your enterprise for education? We'll cover some of that and talk about that. And I hopefully, if you guys are on there, we'll get some questions about that and maybe take some deeper dive into it. And then just some practicalities. So when you take that step as an education user to buy and deploy some enterprise for education licensing, how do you do it? What does that look like? Because you can only do these things once in your domain. So as an admin, how do you add the reseller? How do you, protect it? How do you decide what your relationship is going to be with that reseller? And how do you actually then allocate those licenses out? So just that practicalities of, how do you do it when you take that jump and take advantage of all those fantastic features that are part of the enterprise offer. So just looking at, to give you that overview of enterprise for education, it kind of breaks down into two bundles of stuff that you get, features that you get. So there's the security and admin controls. You get a whole vast array of additional features over and above what you've got in the standard education administration console. You get a whole load of extra things. So these kind of break down into four kind of main buckets around an investigation tool, more security, a greater security dashboard so you can see what's going on across your domain, some security health tools just to let you see what's happening, to stay up to date with what's going on in terms of best practices and such, and some more advanced administration tools. We'll chat about some of these things a bit later on. Some of them are quite we would need a bigger, deeper dive into them to get a kind of real feel for them, but we'll chat about them and just show you some examples of some of those areas as we go through today. And then enterprise users have the additional learning and teaching tools, and given the kind of global pandemic situation at the moment, many of these tools are really, really useful for educators and school leaders who are making use of Google tools. There are also fantastic tools for enterprises who are working on a distributed model right now with many of their staff working from home. The features that are available, these enterprise features like increased number of meeting rooms, like live streaming across your organization, all these features enhance your business offer. So they're really useful from a range of perspectives.
Yeah. If I could just jump in, Charlie, just in terms of as a starting point, because obviously there's some people watching this who are business users and some people who are education users. Now, just a bit of terminology, like as you all know, G Suite has been rebranded as Google Workspace. And if you go to workspace.google.com, you'll see the business version. It's called Google Workspace. But for G Suite Enterprise for Education, it has not yet been rebranded. So by the time you're watching this, it might be called something like Google Enterprise Workspace for Education or something different. We don't know the new name, but I'm sure a branding is coming. So just in terms of these features, like Charlie said, two categories of features: security and admin features, teaching and learning. All these features are available in the business editions of Google Workspace. So what Google has done is it's bringing these premium business features to schools. So again, it doesn't matter if you're watching this as a business user or as a school user, it's going to be relevant to you. The only thing that's really education only is the Originality Reports, I guess. But just in terms of the pricing and business, G Suite for business, so Google Workspace for business, has 4 tiers. The first one is Business Starter. That's $6 a month. Business Standard is $12 a month. Business Plus is $18 a month, and there's Enterprise, which is custom pricing. Now, most of these tools fall between the middle ones, Business Standard and Business Plus. A couple are in the Enterprise. The ones we're going to get to at the end, like data regions and some of the bigger admin tools, are in Enterprise. But most of these are in the tiers for $12 a month or $18 a month per user, Business Standard and Business Plus. So if you go to workspace.google.com, you click on pricing, you'll see which of these features are available. I think we'll get onto the pricing for G Suite Enterprise for Education, but I just wanted to frame this in terms of business users.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan, because these features are kind of really, you get the different business models. As your enterprise grows, your business grows and becomes bigger and takes on more staff and works across data regions and across the world. You'll find that you need those bigger features, the additional features in the different bandings. So it's actually really priced up to reflect where your business organization is in its journey. So it's really there. It's yeah, absolutely. So for education and users, the enterprise offer is really interesting because there's a couple of ways that you can do it. You can go full domain, right? And that means every single one of your users is licensed. And when you do that, you can enable a thing called automatic license allocation as well. So if you create a new user, they automatically get a license, and you don't have to administer that individually. So full domain is great. Keep me right, Dan, but I think the ratio is 1 to 10. For every member of faculty or staff you have, you get 10 students. I think that's right, is it?
Yeah, correct. So basically, yeah, full. Just to mention as well that in case you're wondering, how do you get G Suite Enterprise? The only way is via a partner. The pricing is fixed. Like, doesn't matter how you get it. So it's not possible to go direct. We're obviously Apps Events is a partner, and we'd love to get in touch. So get in touch. But you can use any, if you've got a favorite partner already, you can work with them. But yeah, basically with the full domain license, you basically have to buy licenses for all your staff, and then you get free licenses for all your students. But the ratio has to be 1 to 10. So you can't have more. If you've got 100 staff, it's for 1,000 students. It gets prorated if the ratio is more than that.
Yeah, so you get those licenses. But what's really interesting, and I think in my conversations with educators, I've found lots of educators, particularly kind of K-12 area, really looking at that partial domain licensing, which sounds a kind of odd model, but really what this is if you've got like 1,000 staff, you could buy G Suite Enterprise for education. You could buy that for 100 of them. The minimum purchase is 50, so you've got to buy 50 if you're going to do it. So that's the minimum purchase level. But you could buy it for 100 and then allocate to those kind of power users, those key users that you want.
Yeah. And just to correct slightly, the minimum is 50 staff or 15% of the staff, whichever is higher. So if you've got a lot of staff, then it's more than 15% of the total is more than 50, then that's the minimum. But yeah, exactly. You can go for 50. Remember with full domain licensing though, if you're a small school, there's no minimum. So for example, let's say you've got a school with 5 teachers and 50 students, you could just buy the 5 licenses and get free for the students. So it's kind of it's a little bit complicated depending on what your use case is, and how big the school is.
Yeah, and it's important to keep that right. The great thing is that your reseller, like Apps Events, can keep you right on that and make sure that you're buying the right licenses for it that you need for what you want to achieve. So on the partial licensing, it's really useful because you can go in there and then you could buy a certain number of licenses for those kind of power users and those key users. You could give licenses to your administrators, so all your domain admins would have some access to those enhanced tools around the administration of your domain. And those key users, maybe like school leaders and who maybe need more seats in terms of Google Meets or be able to live stream within your domain, they would have access to those additional tools. So it's really something interesting to think about. You don't have to have, you don't have to license everybody. Think about, how could you make greater use of your tools and best support your environment and your students by having just that partial domain licensing. So it's really interesting. And I think it's a game changer once schools realize that they can do that. So it's really exciting.
Exactly. Remember though, with the full domain license, the benefit you get is free licenses for all your students as well, which, most of the features are done from the staff side, but there are some things where it really helps you to have the student ones as well, in terms of some of the the searching and security features.
Grand. So let me just talk about what are these features? What do we get? So I think these are kind of really interesting. So we'll kind of go through some of the the learning and teaching ones first, and the kind of video conferencing ones to start with, and then we'll work up to some of the admin ones a bit later on, and just kind of chat through them. If you're a standard education user without the enterprise upgrade, you've got kind of a ceiling on how many people you can have in a Google Meet. So that ceiling is 100. And once you get there, no one else is getting in. And if you're a school, a typical school maybe having assemblies online, wanting to have year group meetings, wanting to have maybe a large faculty, maybe you want to have all your faculty in a meeting, you're going to hit that ceiling pretty quickly. So you can take your power users potentially, and you can give them the enterprise upgrade to give them up to 250 participants in the meeting.
Yep. And again, a lot of businesses use this for large meetings, live streaming, etc. It's huge, especially obviously in the COVID time. It's become a default way of communicating with your staff. Yeah,
having that, if you've got that business, having that big town hall meeting, this is the place to do it. This is how you can achieve that and get that done. So it's an absolutely great feature with having those additional seats and having that live stream as well, that live stream option. And that's not live streaming out to the public, that's live streaming within your domain. So it's secure live stream, which is good to know. And if you've got the person who's set up the calendar appointment, and we'll come to it in just a second, but the person who sets up that meeting is the person that needs the enterprise license. Others can join into that meeting who don't have that license, but can still be part of the live stream and still part of the meeting.
Yep.
So it's really, really useful. So I've just got a little bit of practicalities here, just about how you go about setting up a live stream. I get asked this quite a lot. So it's all about using calendar and scheduling your live streaming calendar and the people and inviting in the people you want to be part of the meeting, and then adding the live stream above that. So you can see there's some text just about how to do it. So you'll go into calendar, you'll set up the meeting. Once you've set up your meeting and added Google Meet as the video conferencing, you'll then have an option to the live stream, and you'll get a live stream link that you can share. And in fact, you can share that publicly because no one's going to get access to that unless they're part of your domain. So it's pretty secure as well.
What's the largest live stream you've run yourself, Charlie? Have you run any large ones?
I haven't run many huge ones. I mean, I think the biggest ones that I'm aware of is like 300-400 people that we've been doing, and that's kind of whole schools coming in and watching like a live assembly led by the head teacher, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And obviously, as when you're running these, everyone is muted. You don't have to worry about having to mute all these people individually. Google has some good controls on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe just talk a little bit about Originality Reports. Again, this is a great feature for educators. So to give you the background to this, if you are a standard education user and you're using Google Classroom, your students will submit work, and you can you've got a limited number of Originality Reports you can use. Now, an Originality Report is really a way to check that a student's work is all their own, and that they've done things like, if they have used somebody else's work, that it's properly cited, and you can see where it's come from. It's not being passed off as their work. So it's all about encouraging students to make the right choices when they are creating documents, doing assessments, and submitting reports through Google Classroom.
And this, I guess, this is one reason potentially to think about full domain licensing, because then you can have, obviously, all your students can do unlimited Originality Reports as well, have no restriction on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So by having the enterprise license, if you've got a standard license, what you get in each Google Classroom, you can use Originality Reports. I think it's 3 times for that classroom, for that session. So you've got a limitation. So teaching staff have to choose which bits of work they want the Originality Report to run on. So you've got some restrictions there. If you've got the enterprise license, there are no restrictions on how many times you use that. There's also restrictions on students as well, how many times they can access it as well to check their own work. So by having your enterprise license for education, you take away those barriers and you really bring in Originality Reports. It stops being a kind of plagiarism checking tool and actually becomes a learning tool much more when you've got it available across your whole domain. So this is one of the admin features that I'm just going to touch on here, just to kind of, I suppose, bring us into this idea of what do we mean by, I should have a nice little diagram here, but it's disappeared. I've obviously deleted it. That's bad planning on my part, Dan.
No problem at all.
I've lost my animation. Okay, so let me tell you about data regions. It's important that you conform to your local data requirements. You might have requirements from grant funding organizations that say your data has to be somewhere. You might have decided locally that for data compliance reasons, you're going to want to host your data in a particular region. And you have, with an enterprise license, you have the ability to move enterprise licensed users' data to particular locations. And that means that, for example, my data in my enterprise is held in the European Union because that's where my enterprise license data is sitting. That's the decision we've taken. It might be you want to move all your data to the US region. So you can choose data regions for your organization. So you can set those up and you can move them from no preference to United States or to Europe. And that's what the options that you've got around those.
Yeah,
so,
and it isn't, I mean, I think, it isn't actually a requirement for EU GDPR to be in the European Union, but still many, like you said, many regions and want to have this locally and within Europe, etc., all in the US.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's I know from, for example, in the UK, our local data protection folks have looked at Google and said we're quite happy for your data to be wherever it needs to be. There's a kind of acceptance that that's okay. So yeah, there isn't a kind of GDPR issue around the data, but this gives you options, and I think that's when you think about education enterprise, this is one of those other features that's kind of useful for you to have a think about.
And just to clarify, Charlie, schools need to have a full domain license if they want to keep their students' data also in this region, correct? That's how I understand it.
Yeah, so the way it works is that you can move data. If you're unlicensed, you have no choice. Your data will just sit in the data centers across the world where Google operate. So your data will be kind of spread out amongst data centers. If you have an enterprise license, you can move data even if you've got if you had only one person licensed, you could move that one person's data. So you can do it on a per user. You can move all the users that are licensed to a particular location is what you can do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but for example, if a school had a partial domain license and only 50 staff were licensed and none of the students, if they could only move those 50 staff into this region.
Yes. So they could move the staff, but the students' data would still be wherever it was.
Exactly.
But
so
the
if you wanted
staff
to move the whole school, including the students, to a region, then you would have to get the full domain license, so your students would have as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So absolutely, Dan. If you want to move everybody to a data region, license everyone.
Yeah, it's funny. And just to come back to this full domain against partial domain licensing for G Suite Enterprise, I actually asked Google last week, like, what do people go for? And the vast majority go for full domain licenses. But, partial domain, again, it might be right if you just want certain members of staff. Maybe you've got a huge school or you've got a big district or a big, a trust or whatever. But, most people tend to go for full domain licensing. Doesn't mean it's right for everyone, but just to give you some background. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the advantages of having all those tools for everyone are they're great. It's a great offer. So yeah. I would, I'd be with you. If you can do it, go for that full domain license. So just to talk about what you get as an administrator, and we're here talking about admin and what the admin offer is and that kind of enterprise offer is. If you're an admin of a domain,
what you get with the enterprise license are a host of additional tools that are really, really useful. And one of my favorites is to look at the security dashboard. And this is an enhanced offer that you can see. So in here, we can see a whole range of kind of metrics around our domain. What's happening with spam, what's happening with, OAuth into third-party apps, where we're running in terms of authentication, messages over time, how users are authenticating over time, looking at our kind of encrypted and non-encrypted traffic. So there's lots of really, really useful data here. And we can take any of those reports and you can do a dive into them. And you can actually use them as a basis to go and look further at that particular area. So it's really useful, but at a glance, you're now getting lots more data, much more refined reporting out of with an enterprise license. So it's a real, for security of your domain, and as an administrator managing that security, I'd almost go so far as to say it's a must to give you these extra tools, because you don't know what you don't know otherwise. And so I think having sight of these particular metrics is really useful for an administrator.
Yeah, definitely. And every school I've spoken to who's gone to enterprise has said this is a feature that they really like and they wouldn't want to go back to not having it. For businesses as well, I mean, again, this is something which is in, I believe, the Business Plus version of Workspace, and this again is typically bigger, a larger enterprise with hundreds or thousands of staff typically would want this kind of functionality. But again, it depends. You get smaller firms which may be in finance or another sensitive industry, and they'll be a small company and they'll still want to have these features.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I haven't got a slide note today, but one of the great things that you have with the enterprise admin is an investigation console. So you can actually go in and carry out investigations, look at email, and use your email log, go and look at message information, really do kind of much more detailed investigations than you would have done previously. So it's a really, really powerful tool. And particularly, if you're working in a large organization and you do have to investigate incidents, it's a really powerful tool that you can use for that purpose. So I recommend that to folks. That's just yet another reason why the enterprise offer is such a good one for educators. Yeah. So just to think a little bit more about, what if you want to take that step and move from G Suite Education to Education Enterprise, and you want to buy licenses and then you want to go forward. So the first thing that you need to do is you'll need to establish a relationship with a reseller. So you may have a reseller that you use already. Apps Events is a reseller, or is a reseller that can support you as well. And that reseller, that's who you buy those licenses from. It might be that you already, you may be buying Chromebooks already and you're buying Chromebook licenses to go with those. You may have a reseller that you work with there, but you can establish a reseller for this purpose, for supporting your enterprise for education licensing.
Could I just jump in at this point?
Yeah.
Charlie? Yeah. Just in terms of how it works with the reseller. So first of all, you get a free 1 month trial. You can try for free. Now, your reseller, it works a little bit differently for the partial domain licensing and the full domain licensing. So for the partial domain licensing, your reseller, like Apps Events or anyone who you work with, they can just provision that directly through their console. So you're in touch with them, they can provision you on a partial domain license. For a full domain license, it takes between 24 to 72 hours to get approved. Google have to approve it. And there's a couple of things. The first thing is Google needs a form filled out on school letterhead, which just basically states the number of staff, the number of students, etc. But which we help you as a partner get this form. But we have to get this letter from you, the school. We then upload that into the console. Google then takes a look at your domain. And a big, just remember, it's kind of obvious, but not always. You need to have an existing Google Workspace for Education account. So, you need to first of all be approved for education to do this upgrade. But then once you've got that, we get this letter. And so that the full domain license takes a little bit longer, but it's pretty simple. It's basically just we need to get this letter and a few other things. We've got a Google form. We fill it all out. So it's not that hard. I just wanted to add in the differences in setting those two things up.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you get set up, you have to get your licenses into your existing education domain. You need to establish a reseller. So that's actually done through the kind of company profile piece, and you will you'll add what's called a kind of transfer token. It's a token. Each reseller has a unique code that they use. That's a kind of reseller public code. And your reseller, once you got that relationship set up, your reseller will be able to give you that code. And you come in here into the admin console and you'll add in the reseller's code. You'll confirm their identity. And then when you do that, you'll get a string, like a string of characters that's a kind of token. And you give that token to your reseller, they enter it their end, and that sets up a relationship between you and your reseller, which means that the reseller can then provide you with those licenses that you're looking for. And it has additional benefits as well as the licensing support that you get. You may have a reseller that offers you additional support for your domain. So many resellers, Apps Events included, will provide you with support about best practice to run your domain. And through the reseller console that we have as resellers, we can actually go into your domain and provide support in the actual environment that you're using. So it's really, that relationship between an organization and a reseller is there. Same for enterprise. For enterprise users, business users, reseller can provide you with support as well. So that take some of that heavy lifting in terms of managing and administering your domain. We can take some of that off you. So once you've got that relationship established, depending on what that relationship is, you can make a choice about whether that reseller has access to your domain or not. Because you may decide that's not something you want. Maybe you've got people already do that work for you and you want to manage your own domain and not have that reseller come in. So you're in control as the administrator of your domain. You can decide on what happens there. So what you can do is you can manage that reseller access. So in your account management settings inside the admin console, you've got an option here. You go into account settings, account management, and you will have the option to enable or disable that reseller access for your domain. So you're in control, as I say, and can allow that access or not. So it's just useful for people to know. Sometimes people get a little bit concerned when they say, "Well, I've got a reseller, but what will they be able to do?" They'll have access if you allow that access, and if you want them to do that. So remember, you're in control of your domain, which is really important. Yeah.
Can I just jump in one thing about the
sure.
training, Charlie? Sorry. So just in terms of what we do free training and support, and how we structure it for our G Suite Enterprise for Education. Giuseppe is the term, by the way, which is, and I'm not using it too much because it's going to change imminently. But Giuseppe customers is we do a monthly call where basically, first of all, we go over all the new features, everything that's come, and then we have a Q&A, so you can come on every month and go over any questions you've got and anything you want to know and share with the group. Obviously, we record them and we help people if they want to ask us at other times, but we kind of structure this as a monthly update. Anything more, we're new to being a reseller, so this is how we're doing it now. We may make it every 2 weeks, but right now the functionality is not changing that often, so we were keeping it to once a month.
Yeah. Garen, so just really carrying on from that point of, once you've got licenses, so you've got that reseller set up, you've purchased your licenses, the licenses have been allocated your domain. That can happen really, really quickly for partial domain licensing. I've done it where literally put in the purchase order for the license, license has been with me, 2 hours, 3 hours later. Really, really quick turnaround on that. So that's, that close relationship with the reseller works there. So you can turn around that licensing pretty quickly for most resellers because it's kind of just an online process that they do. So once you've got that, those licenses, you need to be able to allocate them. So what I'm talking about here is that allocation where you do it by user. So this is your partial domain licensing model rather than the full one. So I've just got a GIF here that takes you through what that looks like. So you'll go to your user directory and you'll choose the user you want to allocate the license to. And you may have seen this license managing for other features within Google Workspace, but here what we've got is the licensing that I've got here that's available. So you can just see that when the GIF starts now, the license isn't assigned. You click onto it to assign the license. You just assign the license, save the settings, license is assigned. It's really, really, really straightforward. So in terms of managing that partial domain licensing as you go, it's a piece of cake. And as you go through, you'll notice that the number of licenses you have remaining show up on screen. So you'll know exactly what you've got left to allocate to users. So there's no surprises here. You're not going to have to go away and see how many you need or how many you've got left there. It's on screen all the time. So when you allocate that license, it just comes off your total, and you'll see that as you go. So pretty pretty good in terms of ease of use. It's not a difficult process to manage that partial domain licensing. Just identify the users, and that's you. So Dan, I think for me that's really kind of just a whistle stop through kind of some of these features of the education enterprise. Really kind of just highlighting some of the things that are available and some of the practicalities around the how do you do it with your reseller and stuff. So from me, I think we're kind of just at that kind of end point in the presentation. I know we've got quite a few things just to maybe touch on, just to come back to again.
I think it'd be good just to finish with a quick recap, because we've covered a few things. Could we possibly go back to the slide? I think it's slide number 16 with all the features, and just to show, again, like we've gone through a few of these, we can just see all the. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, exactly. So just again, like Charlie said, I mean, if you're a business user, most of these are on third tier of business called Business Plus, business, and some of them are on Business Standard, the second tier. The only thing which is only school specific is Originality Reports. Everything else can be used for both. And yeah, two types of tools, two types of features: security and admin tools, and teaching and learning tools. They're kind of how it breaks down. People get G Suite Enterprise for Education for different reasons. Right now, a big feature we haven't really touched on, but a lot of people want to record lessons. So in Google Meet, you can record all the lessons, saves them to Drive automatically. That's a really big thing. Some people want to have breakout rooms, these other features with Meet. Some want admin features. Some want to have like Charlie was showing, the security control panel. Some want to have data regions. Their local, especially for example in Germany, they quite often want to have stuff in data stored in this local region. So people choose this for a lot of different regions, different reasons. You can't just pick and choose one, unfortunately. You get everything, but pretty much everyone, regardless of the reason they choose it, they tend to use all the other features as well, in my experience.
Yeah, I'd really agree with that. And what I'm finding already is that where organizations have gone to a partial licensing model, it's actually generating demand from other users in the domain. Yep. Because others are saying, "Oh, I need those features. I need those," and we're seeing that uptick increase. So it's a real driver for change in an organization as well.
Yeah, definitely. Great. I mean, just to say, we've got a small number of people watching. You've been very quiet. If you've got a question, please stick it in the chat. We'll answer it. Otherwise, if you're watching this in the future, like most people will be, just ask the question in the comments, and we'll just give you an answer in the comments as well.
Okay, yeah. So
we've got Veronica joined us again. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Veronica.
so much. You too. It was really nice and useful. Thank you for that. Again, I would like to say thank you to Acer, to our partner, because we are able to run free summits just because of this great cooperation. So thanks to Acer again. I would like to also mention that we are running next week our free virtual education that time summit on 27th of January. So it's next week. So feel free to join us again. And for this free virtual Chrome admin summit, please feel free to join us on 30th of March. So we are looking forward to meeting you again, and also to see you. Meeting you. So thank you so much for listening us, and see you next time.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.